gorgeous. Welcome to the 5th season of the Hormone P.U.Z.Z.L.E Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Kayla Smith, a holistic and integrative doctor specializing in fertility and hormone health. If you're looking for insights into hormones, fertility, and all things related, you've come to the right place. Tune in weekly as we record amazing experts in the field of women's health, breaking down those hormone walls, nerding out on nutrition, and having way too much fun. Whether you're beginning your journey or you've been struggling for years, we're going to finally put those pieces of your hormone puzzle back together so that you can get and stay pregnant if that's your goal, as well as eliminate all your hormone-related symptoms for good. Are you ready? This season, we're focusing closely on fertility and hormone health with an amazing lineup of expert guests sharing groundbreaking knowledge, bringing you stories and advice that will support you in your journey. We're here to lift your spirits, give you a virtual hug, inspiration, empower you, and we want you to take charge of your fertility and your health. Thank you all so much for tuning in and being amazing listeners. So now, let's get started on your road to transformation. Let's start putting those pieces of your hormone puzzle back together one step at a time. On today's show, we have Danielle Hamilton, better known as Dani. She is a functional nutrition therapy practitioner and is a renowned blood sugar expert, specializing in hypoglycemia and reactive hypoglycemia. Her journey into the specialized field was fueled by her personal battle with PCOS, which she successfully reversed after learning that blood sugar issues and insulin resistance were the root cause of this. From overcoming PCOS, hypoglycemia, cystic acne, PMS, and weight loss resistance, Dani realized the power of stable blood sugar and its vital role in overall health. This drives her mission to empower others to recognize and remedy their blood sugar issues, even when the early signs are often dismissed or misdiagnosed. Dani uses a nuanced, holistic approach to optimizing blood sugar, combining nutrient-dense diets, personalized lifestyle changes, and stress management techniques. She is the host of the Top 50 Nutrition podcast, Unlock the Sugar Shackles. She is also the creator of the transformative Blood Sugar Mastery Program. Today, we are talking about blood sugar balance, insulin resistance, and how both of these things and more play a role in your overall fertility and hormone health. Now, let's welcome Dani to the podcast. Hey, Dani, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, so nice to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, I'm super excited to talk to you. And like I said earlier, I love talking about this, blood sugar and insulin and all the things. This is going to be a great show.
Yeah, I'm really excited too. Those things didn't excite me years ago. I will tell you that. I actively avoided learning about all those things because I'm like, that sounds boring and complicated. So if you're thinking that, if you're like, that does not sound fun, then You're in the right place, actually.
I know. My husband always jokes and he was like, you're such a nerd. You love learning about all this sciencey stuff. And I'm like, yep, that's me.
For sure. I love it too. But like I was telling you off air, I'm not a scientist. So I like to learn just the basics so I know what to do so I can understand my body. It's not about, we don't need a science degree. Like we don't need to be like physiologists to understand our bodies. And, that's why I went back to school, because I'm like, I don't know how to heal myself. I couldn't figure it out. And I just don't want other people to have to do that. So that's why I like to give just the basics, just enough to understand what to do.
Perfect. I love it. And so let's dive into your story. Tell us more about you and how you started getting into this work and, what makes you so passionate about what you do.
Yeah. So I have a story that begins in childhood. I'll try to make it quick. So I used to be a kid. I grew up in the 80s and 90s, loved processed breakfast foods. Basically, I grew up on those things. And I, never had a drop of fat until, I was maybe 20, and I, not surprisingly, struggled with lots of colds and many ear infections, which meant many rounds of antibiotics, lots of strep throat. I had to get my tonsils out at 18, which was rough. And then after I got my tonsils out, it was time to go to college. And of course, my eating, drinking, all those things got worse. And not surprisingly, my health also got worse. And when you take out a part of your immune system, like your tonsils, your immune system can go haywire. So I started developing allergies and asthma. I always struggled with my skin. I had acne. I had period issues. I was bloated. I tried the pill. It made it worse. It was just, I was gaining. I always struggled with my weight my whole life. And I was just kind of falling apart. And then I moved to Miami, Florida for grad school. And that's where season, quote, for allergies was all year round now. Right. And so I basically needed to be put in a bubble because I was allergic to everything outdoors, everything indoors, including palm trees, by the way, which I didn't even know was a possibility. And so I also had asthma. I don't know if anyone remembers those old Advair commercials where like an elephant was sitting on someone's chest. That is exactly what I felt like. I couldn't take a full breath. Meanwhile, I was in mold in these dorms and things like that. And so that was an issue, but I was just allergic to everything. I was taking Advair and Singular and Zyrtec and albuterol, I mean, inhalers. And then I was also getting allergy shots. And because I was allergic to so many things, I needed 3 whole vials. So I needed to get 3 shots at a time. And then a year later, I started developing more allergies because I didn't heal the root cause. And so I needed 2 more shots. So now here I was, early 20s, getting 5 allergy shots. I actually was able to start giving them to myself because they sort of allowed a nurse at the facility I was working at to do that. So I'm giving myself 5 shots in the stomach every other day, just like looking at all these like medications and syringes. I'm like, what is my life right now? And I was also struggling with chronic sinus infections. I was so tired. I would drop a pen at work and just start crying because I had no tolerance for anything. And I was just a hot mess. I struggled with candida. I had my gyno on speed dial. I mean, just a mess. And none of my doctors could ever give me any answers. I was like, why is this happening? What can I do? It was either bad luck, genetics, and I just had to come in and keep getting the shots. You know, that was the treatment. And by the grace of the universe, a book landed in my hand called The Paleo Diet Solution by Rob Wolf. And I started learning about food. I started learning about eating real food, and I tried it for myself. And like a miracle, everything in my body healed. I got no more shots, no more meds, no more allergies, no more asthma, no more sinus infections. I mean, it was like everything just cleared up. It was like, it was honestly like a miracle. And I just, of course, wanted to shout from the rooftops, like, oh my gosh, food can heal you. It's amazing. We've been lied to. So, you know, because I was always following the food pyramid. I was doing healthy whole grains. I was, you know, following their advice, and I was becoming sick. And that's what really got me, because I was working as a speech pathologist in a nursing home, and I was seeing all these people who were following what they were told, and they were extremely sick. They lost the ability to be independent. They couldn't formulate a thought, formulate a sentence, have memories, get up and use the bathroom, clean themselves. And it was heartbreaking to watch. And then I was too upset about that. So I started working with kids as a speech therapist, saw it on the other end of the life spectrum. I saw all these kiddos struggling to pay attention, struggling to have, you know, understand and comprehend and speak and communicate. And it was really, really heartbreaking that I felt like I wasn't giving them the information that could really help them. So of course I was on the side trying to give like diet information, and these kids would have like improvements. I mean, that would take 2 to 4 years of speech therapy. So I was like, I am in the wrong field. But anyway, still working as a speech therapist, and started to eating paleo, living life. And then I had a really stressful year, and I started to have this resurgence of a bunch of symptoms, but they were new ones. They were hormonal symptoms. So I was really fatigued all the time, waking up at like 11 a.m., which was so not like me. My periods were horrible, every symptom in the book. And I was starting to gain weight. My acne that was always with my cycle was all the time. It was like cystic acne on my cheeks, all over my forehead. I was like, thank God I have bangs. Like it was, so I was just like, what is going on? And then I didn't get a period for 6 months. And I'm like, something's happening, and I don't know what it is, because I just changed my diet, and this diet healed me, and now it's making me sick. Like I couldn't figure it out. And I knew that the answer wasn't go back and do what I was going to do before. So anyway, I did a deep dive, found out I probably had polycystic ovarian syndrome, PCOS, like probably many people listening. And I struggled to figure out what was going on. I kept trying to impact my hormones. Nothing made a dent in what I was doing. So I did go to a doctor and I was like, I'm trying to lose weight. I can't lose a pound. I'm eating healthy. I'm working out. What can I do? I think I have PCOS. He goes, you do have PCOS. You have to lose weight. There's no cure and you have to take the pill. Lots of good advice there. Thank you. He forced me to take the prescription for the pill. I ripped it up when I got in my car. I did take spironolactone and metformin for a period of time. They did help me. But I just was like, I want to figure this out. Like I just couldn't get to the root of it. So I took the long route trying to do everything myself. And finally, like 6 years later, I heard a podcast where someone said, PCOS is the diabetes of the ovaries. And I almost got in a car accident because I was just so shocked. I was like, wait, diabetes. I was like, doesn't that have to do with blood sugar? Okay, what do I know about blood sugar? Nothing. I absolutely knew nothing about it. It sounded, like I said, confusing and boring. So I avoided learning about that. So what I didn't know was hurting me. I was like, I'm not diabetic. I don't need to care about my blood sugar. I'm not pre-diabetic. I don't need to care about my blood sugar. But studies show now that 93% of the population is metabolically unhealthy. And that means there's already issues brewing with blood sugar and insulin. Maybe your blood sugar hasn't even moved yet definitely maybe it hasn't gotten to a range where your doctor is concerned because in my opinion, they're not using tight enough ranges. Like we talk about in functional medicine, there's much tighter ranges for optimal, right? We're not just looking for disease free. We're looking for optimal. So they're not picking up on these things. And what we know is that insulin, which we can talk about, can be rising for decades before we ever see a change in our blood sugar. So if we're just waiting for our doctor to tell us there's a blood sugar issue, you're going to catch it 20, 30 years too late. I will tell you that right now. And so this is something that affects almost every single one of us, 93% of people. And so it's something that I had no idea how to even correct. And it's like, oh, is it just carbs? Like, is it, just sugar? And it's not, it goes beyond that. But so I did this reflection, like, okay, I have to have some sort of symptoms of blood sugar issues, even though like I don't know what they are. So I started to research, obviously, and I found that, oh my goodness, all these things that I thought were like personality traits or little labels for myself are actually blood sugar issues. So the fact that I would wake up shaking and I'd be like, well, I'm just a breakfast person. And that's why I hate fasting blood work and I need to have breakfast right away. I'm just a breakfast person. No, I was hypoglycemic. My blood sugar was 60 and I was super, super shaky. I also used to say, I don't have a sweet tooth. All my teeth are sweet. Like I had these little sayings and it was like, no, you have blood sugar dysregulation. I was a foodie and that's why I had to carry food with me wherever I went. It wasn't the fact that my blood sugar was dropping, which I didn't understand at that time. So I was the girl with the granola bar in the purse. I was the one always thinking about food. Where are we going to get the next meal? I would start to get nervous. Like I would eat before I went out to eat and I would sit there and catch myself like, why are you doing this? We're going to eat. And it was that fear. What if it takes too long to get sat down at the table? What if the meal takes too long to come? I couldn't handle hunger. And that's because of my blood sugar, because I lacked the ability to basically what happens when your blood sugar is dysregulated at these beginning stages is that your body struggles to be able to burn any sort of stored fuel. So as human beings, we need to store fuel on us because we're not eating all the time. Think about early humans. They didn't always have access to food. Right now we do always have access to food. And this is the big problem, but we didn't used to. So our bodies are designed to be able to store energy on them. That body fat is stored energy. We also store some sugar in our liver, in our muscles. That's called glycogen. And we store this so when we go periods without eating, our body can just have that endless source of energy. We're not like keeling over on the sidewalk. We're not like getting hangry. We're not getting irritable. So what happens is that there's a couple of hormones at play, but when insulin goes up because we're snacking all the time, because we're eating these high carbohydrate, refined carbohydrate meals, because we're stressed out, because our lights are on at night, which drives cortisol up, which drives insulin up, which is blowing my mind learning all this stuff. And we are, just our modern stressful world is raising our stress levels and therefore raising insulin levels. And insulin is a hormone that it's a very important hormone, but one of the things that it does is that when insulin is high in the blood, it tells the body to store fat. And so it puts us in this almost like a fat storage mode, because it's like, okay, she's eating, we got to store this for later. Any excess that she's not using, let's store it for later because we might need to use it later, right? But when our insulin is high, it's also blocking our body from burning any sort of fat or burning any sort of stored energy in our body. So that means we don't have access to it. It's almost like we put blinders on our metabolism. So that means like we can't use anything stored in our body. So now we're driven to eat every couple of hours, and we're thinking about carbs because that's the only thing that's fast energy. That's the only thing our body can use. So these high insulin levels that build up over time from our just modern lifestyles are blocking us from using stored energy. And that means that when we start to feel hungry, it's usually very urgent. It feels like we might feel irritable. We might have a lot of symptoms with this hunger. It might be very driven towards carbohydrates. We might feel dizzy, shaky, lightheaded, anxious, irritable, brain fog, difficulty concentrating. Maybe we feel weak or tired, or we get headaches, or we feel heart palpitations, because then we start to get that stress response, right? Because if our blood sugar goes down too low, then our adrenals have to come in and pump us with hormones like stress hormones to help get that blood sugar back up into a safe range. So that's where we might experience some of those more like our adrenaline is pumping. So it might feel like, oh, my heart's pounding. I have anxiety. I'm shaky. You might feel like, oh, I'm having an anxiety attack, but actually it could be your blood sugar. And so I know that was super long. I'll let you jump in here, but that's
oh my goodness, so good. That's so crazy too, because everything you described, all those symptoms, I was a kid of the 80s and that was me. I had every one of those symptoms, including infertility. And it was all, take a birth control pill. This is in your head. Like none of this is real. So I can completely relate to all of that. And nobody ever said to me blood sugar, but it makes so much sense. It's crazy. And just to link that into, fertility issues. And I love that you said that the, PCOS is kind of like the diabetes of the ovaries. That makes so much sense. So to dive into a couple of things, talk to us a little bit more about, the insulin. Every time we eat, our body releases insulin. And so we start to get insulin resistance. So let's throw that in there, because I feel like a lot of my patients and our listeners struggle with insulin resistance. So tell us what that is.
Yeah. So insulin resistance is, like you said, every time we eat, and especially when we eat carbohydrates, the more refined or processed they are, the more they will spike insulin. Starches also very much spike insulin. Milk actually, and whey protein spike insulin. And that's, if we think about milk, it's for a baby, and the baby needs to gain weight and put on fat and build and be in a growth state. So insulin is very growth promoting. Hence the cysts in polycystic ovarian syndrome. A lot of women with endometriosis, with extra growths, skin tags are a symptom of, and weight gain, symptoms of insulin resistance, because it's that growth promotion that is happening. Also tropical fruits, very high, spiking insulin. So there's a lot of foods that spike our blood sugar, and some of these spike insulin even more than that, but we don't have a way to measure insulin besides just going to the doctor and getting kind of like a lab test. We do have continuous glucose monitors, and those are measuring the sugar or the glucose. So glucose and insulin are different. A lot of people think that they're one and the same, but this is where the complication comes in. So I'm going to try to make this super easy. Glucose, sugar, right? So we eat sugar, then we get sugar. We have sugar in the blood. Now the body's like, ooh, that's too much sugar in the blood because it's always trying to maintain, remember that word from like 8th grade science, homeostasis. That's that balance where it's like, we like it not too high, not too low. We like it just right. And with every single hormone, almost everything in the body, it's like it doesn't want too much. It doesn't want too little. It needs that just right amount. So same thing with blood sugar, same thing with insulin. Same thing with all our hormones. So as blood sugar is going up after we eat like a high carb meal, even protein, lots of protein can also raise blood sugar. Then the pancreas is like, oh, the blood sugar is going too high. I know that's an inflammatory state. That's not what I want right now. We need to bring it back down into homeostasis, into this happy range. And so it's going to release a hormone called insulin. And keep in mind, insulin is a hormone. And this is where the hormone connection comes in with blood sugar, because any hormone that goes out of balance is going to throw the other ones out of balance. And what we see oftentimes is that high insulin will drive high testosterone and high androgens in women. It also drives high estrogen levels in men. So it promotes infertility in both of these, like in both sexes, right? Yeah. So as blood sugar goes up, pancreas is like, oop, that's too much. We're going to secrete insulin. And insulin, basically, I'd like to think of it like takes the sugar by the hand, knocks on the door of the cell, unlocks the cell, and allows the glucose to go in. So the insulin is sort of like this mediator that helps the sugar get where it needs to go, because in the blood, it needs a little bit in the blood, just about a teaspoon circulating in the blood. So it's not a lot, but it needs some, but it doesn't like a lot. And that's actually really bad for our body, because it's almost, we think about when you put a piece of bread in the toaster and it toasts, that's glycation. So that's the same thing that sort of happens inside of our blood vessels when we have too much sugar for too long. So it's called these advanced glycation end products, AGES, and sugar. When it's high, it literally ages us. It's how it gives us wrinkles. It breaks down collagen. So we need the insulin to lower the blood sugar, and it does that by taking the sugar out of the blood and putting it into the body. So it can be used for energy. We'll put it in the muscles, put it in the liver, in the brain, wherever it needs to go to make energy. So that's fine. That's great. We need that process to happen. And it's okay if it's like, a little bit of rise and then we stop eating and then we eat the next meal. Think about how things were for our grandparents' generation. They would eat at a meal, they wouldn't eat again, and then they'd eat at their next meal. And that worked out really well for most people. Most people were a very healthy weight because of that. But now, then in the 80s, they're like, ooh, we can make a lot of money telling everybody that they need to snack all day long, because now they have to buy snack foods. So everyone will ask me, what's a healthy snack? And I say, there's no such thing. Healthy snacking does not exist, because snacking is not healthy. And so people will ask me for what's the healthiest snack you can eat? Nothing, body fat, So I know I'm being extreme here.
No, I completely agree. And I have this conversation daily with my patients.
Yeah, exactly. So what we want to do is we want to allow blood sugar to come down, and we want to allow insulin to come down between meals. And then we want to be using that stored fuel between meals. Ideally, a healthy body should have no difficulty using that stored fuel. And that is metabolic flexibility. That is really what we want, because that all of a sudden feels like now we are not this marionette being controlled by like a puppet being controlled by these sugar cravings, this drive to keep getting energy, because we have the energy and we can access that energy. And that's such a powerful, powerful feeling, because you are now not controlled by food. You are in control. You are in the driver's seat. You get to say, oh, do I want to eat yet? It's like, oh, I'm not really hungry yet. Let me finish this task. Let me run this errand. Then I'm going to go home and eat. There's so many times where I'm like, I'll go to the gym and I'm like, I need to run by the post office really quick. And I'm like, Imagine that. Like a couple of years ago, I would have been like, no way. I am beelining home. I'm stopping at a drive-through. Like there was no space. It was constantly, what am I going to eat? What am I going to eat? What am I going to eat? So that's really powerful. So insulin resistance, to go back to your original question, is when we are spiking insulin at meals, at snacks, like I mentioned, because of stress. So high cortisol is going to drive high insulin. Toxins also can drive high cortisol, high insulin. And I talked about lights. So I'm starting to learn about circadian rhythms and how light impacts us. So blue light especially it's something that our brains, think about having an airport with no traffic control tower, right? It would be a hot mess. Mm-hmm. So our brains also have that traffic control. Inside of our brains, our hypothalamus and our suprachiasmatic nucleus, basically. So it's SCN, don't worry about it, doesn't matter. But it is the control tower. So it's telling our body what to do at certain times. How come you're not asleep right now? Because that would be really inappropriate because our body knows to make cortisol right now during the daytime, because there's light in my eyes, because I just ate lunch, because all these things are telling my body it's time to be awake, it's time to digest food, it's time to metabolize sugar, it's time to produce cortisol. It's not time for healing. It's not time for sleeping. It's not time for restoring and repairing. That happens at night when there's no light, right? So this concept of timing is really, really important for the body. And it's something that I'm just learning that is blowing my mind and I'm super excited about. So our bodies were designed, think about it, we lived as early humans outside. So there was very bright days, very dark nights. And that signal is how we started evolving as humans and like lived as early humans. And that's what our body is craving. So it knows what to do at the right time. So if I'm confusing my body by the sun is going down, and I'm turning on all these overhead lights with all this blue light that's signaling through my eyes to my suprachiasmatic nucleus that it's daytime and that I need to be producing cortisol, it's going to raise my cortisol, it's going to raise my insulin, and it's going to suppress melatonin production, which is super important for sleep and every single repair process that our body does. It's also a very powerful antioxidant. And so if we're not sleeping well, we will become more insulin resistant even just the next day. So we need to have all these things working in the right timing, and we need to not suppress this natural melatonin production. So many of your people, I'm sure, have cortisol that's either too high, too low, or at the wrong time, right? We have the cortisol spike in the evening. We have no cortisol in the morning. Light is the primary time giver to our body. When we eat is the secondary time giver to the body. So we can develop insulin resistance. And this also, leptin comes into play. So it's like, that's such a hard one, but I just do want to mention leptin is a hormone that's produced in our fat cells. And it communicates to our brain, that control tower, and it says, hey, Dani has enough energy on her that we can lower her appetite tomorrow. We don't need to make her anxious and freak out about getting food. We have enough stored energy to make a baby. We are safe. We are good to go. And as long as leptin can dock in the hypothalamus, that control center of the brain, and give that report, and say, we have plenty of body fat actually. So let's lower that appetite even a little bit more because she's good to go. We can burn that body fat. You have the green light. If the leptin can do that, it does that at night, and it needs to make sure if insulin is high, insulin is like the hot guy and leptin's like the nerdy guy. And so the brain's going to choose the hot hunky guy, insulin, every single time. And it will block out that little nerdy little leptin guy trying to be like, oh, I just wanted to tell you about your energy report for the day. He's going to be like, I'm not having it. So if leptin can't dock to the hypothalamus because insulin is spiked because we're eating too late, because the lights are on, and I'll tell you some strategies. We don't have to live in the dark, so don't worry. So if leptin is not communicating, my brain is going to assume that I'm starving. and that there's a famine and that something's wrong. And it's going to say, okay, there's no body fat. There's nothing in storage. We need to increase her appetite. We need to increase her anxiety. This is not safe. We need to hold on to everything. And she is not safe to have a baby right now because something is wrong. And that is huge. Like I literally have chills because it's just such a powerful learning that, oh my gosh, there's all these other hormones at play. And like all this time, I thought my body hated me and all these things. And it's like, no, it's just our environment is preventing us from being well. Our body wants to heal. Our body wants to do this. We want to have controlled order in the airport. We want to know when the flights are going out and coming in. And so if we can be in an environment where our insulin is not too high because we're working on our stress, we're seeing morning sunlight, we're getting the right light in our eye, we're not overeating carbs when we don't tolerate them well, or we're not sedentary. So building muscle is an amazing way to improve our insulin sensitivity. It's like creating sponges and you squeeze out those sponges every time you work out and the sugar just goes right back in as soon as you start, as you eat again. So it's amazing. So there's so many little things here. And if we can get these hormones working right, then we can really heal our bodies. And so it's just some unconventional and some sort of surprising and unexpected things that maybe are in this conversation that you wouldn't have thought I was going to say, but it's really, really cool. And I think it's really empowering because a lot of these strategies are free. And a lot of these things are just little tweaks that we need to make that, like, I just want people to feel that we don't have to be like so nitpicky all the time about every single drop of food that we take in. And I feel like we're sort of aiming towards that now. It's like, it needs to be this perfect diet and we can't have this one drop of carb. And it's like, is that actually right? Like, maybe for a period of time, we really need to control and we need to say, my body, I've had way too many carbs compared to like my energy output for way too long. And I've been really stressed out and I'm eating some inflammatory foods and, my light environment is totally off and I'm, devices first thing in the morning and, I'm not moving as much as I should. So if we look at every little piece of that puzzle, if we start to make little changes in all these areas, it starts to add up in a big way. So I don't want people to think like they need to do this whole, like everything needs to change in this, like I need to make these huge changes. We can start with making these tiny little changes in all these different areas and it starts to really add up. Because the last thing I'll say is that when it comes to blood sugar, our blood sugar affects everything and everything affects our blood sugar. So that's why it's not just a conversation about food, even though I'm a nutritionist. Like it's not just about food. It's not just about exercise. It's about everything. And so I don't want that to feel overwhelming. I want it to feel empowering that we can do these little things like, okay, yeah, I can add more protein and healthy fats at my meals. Like, okay, I could do that. Like I can turn my phone screen red in the evening and get a pair of orange blue blocking glasses and a $7 red light bulb on Amazon. Like, okay, I can do that. I can get outside and see morning sunlight. Like, okay, I could handle that. Right. So these little things that feel like, all right, I'm doing it. And all of a sudden, like you just start to see these amazing changes, sleeping faster, less inflamed. I have a client who has MS and she started incorporating all of these like circadian light principles. And before that, after 2 p.m., she like couldn't walk. She had to be in bed by 5 p.m., just totally out of it. And she started incorporating these principles. And within about 5 to 6 weeks, she was up during a coaching call at 8 p.m. She's like, I can walk after 2 p.m. Like that's not a thing anymore. I mean, just the amazing how the brain wants to heal, our bodies want to heal. And so much of this is connecting to nature, eating foods that are seasonally available. That's a whole other rabbit hole, but and that's hard to do. I haven't mastered that yet. So, but yeah, so I'll let you dive in.
Oh my goodness. I love it. I love it. All of that. And we're going to talk practical tips in the next half, but you've given us a lot of really good things. And I love that you're giving us just practical tips that are free and just like you said, little things that we can incorporate into our daily lives. I always say small hinges swing big doors, and it's these little bitty habits that make the big results happen, not overhauling your whole life. So love that you say that. And I was also the girl with the granola bar in my purse and always hungry and couldn't go anywhere. Like, when are we going to eat? And now once you figure the blood sugar thing out, it's so much better. Like, I can go 5 hours and I'm like, I'm good. Like, I can go overnight. I'm good. I'm not laying in bed starving. So I love that you said that. So important. So we are going to take a short break. We're going to hear a word from our sponsors. We're going to come back and we're going to talk more about those practical tips and how we kind of optimize our blood sugar, our insulin for our hormones and fertility. So we'll be right back. Hey y'all, it's Dr. Kayla here. I hope you are loving this episode as much as I am. We will be back shortly, but first, let's hear a word from our amazing sponsor. Trust me, it's something you'll definitely want to hear, especially if you're passionate about fertility and hormone health. Did you know we have our exclusive herbal tea crafted especially for fertility, hormones, and reproductive health? This isn't just any tea. It's a nurturing blend of 5 potent herbs, each chosen for their unique ability to support fertility and hormone balance. Imagine the benefits of red raspberry, nettles, calming chamomile, antioxidant-rich green tea, white peony, and the delightful rooibos vanilla, all in one soothing cup. This delicious, nutritious tea is perfect for starting your morning or relaxing in the evening. So why wait? Head on over to our website, www.hormonepuzzlesociety.com/fertility-tea to support your fertility journey in the most natural and enjoyable way. Now let's get back to our insightful episode and continue our hormone puzzle journey together. Hey, Dani, welcome back.
Hello. Happy to be here. Super excited to keep talking blood sugar.
Me too. So let's dive into some more. Like I said earlier, we've already kind of discussed some practical tips, but what are maybe your top 5 things? If somebody's listening and they're like, this is all new to me, what's 5 things they can do today to optimize their blood sugar?
Okay. So I used to start with food, but now I start with circadian rhythms because the timing, like I mentioned in the first half, is so important. So when it comes to our circadian rhythms, ideally, the first light that we get in our eyes should be the light from the sunrise, and this should be through naked eyes. Mm-hmm. So there's an app called Circadian. There's also Circadian Life app, and it allows you to see when the sun comes up and when the sun hits different angles in the sky, because at different times of the day, there's different wavelengths that are more predominant, and these wavelengths do amazing things that are blowing my mind for our bodies. So when we first see the sun rise as it first comes over the horizon, it's totally okay, by the way, if it's cloudy, if there's buildings in the way, if there's a mountain in the way, trees, houses, it doesn't matter. Outside, naked eyes, no contacts, no glasses, is perfect. Whatever it is perfect outside. So you just want to sky gaze east. You just want to look at the sky facing east when the sun is coming up. That will start to gradually turn on cortisol levels, not a giant spike of cortisol that's very stimulating, alerting too much for our physiology. Remember, we talked about homeostasis. Mm-hmm. We want a gradual rise of that cortisol, and it will also help to suppress melatonin because it will be that blue light that starts to come in. And so we don't have that morning, like lagging, dragging feeling. So we can gradually turn on our cortisol. It actually starts to stimulate pregnenolone, which is a precursor hormone that can be used to make cortisol and sex hormones really important for fertility. So we want to see that morning light as the first light in our eyes. Another really cool time of day that I am like geeking out about because it's just unbelievable that free light from the sun can do all these amazing things, is that when the sun is 10 to 30 degrees off the horizon, it's very high in this wavelength called UVA light. And you can find this out in your area. It's usually sometime in the early morning, but it changes depending on like the day and where you are on the globe. So look in that Circadian or Circadian Life app, and you'll find when UVA is by you. UVA light helps to improve your drive, your energy, your concentration, your motivation. It reduces inflammation because it increases, it tells your body, hey, it's time to produce serotonin, dopamine, epinephrine, norepinephrine, and thyroid hormones. So it's amazing for your metabolism. I mean, unbelievable, just unbelievable that the sun is telling our body to do this, right? So sometimes it has me thinking like, how did my body know how to do anything? I think it's that it's getting the timing and the signals from my environment to do what it needs to do. It's not going to just do it automatically because it's all that this is how it's evolved. So I'm having these crazy realizations that it's like, whoa, this is really cool. So now I can time a walk. I can time a phone call. I can time, I need to take a break from work. I can, like take the kids out, take the dog for a walk, as much as you are able to get outside during that UVA window, which is approximately let's say an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes. So you have some time in there. So you can know when that is and get outside during that time, again, with naked eyes, and it can really help to tell your body. So we don't have to be outside all day. We're not going to be let's be cave people and neglect all our normal duties, but that's really powerful. So, and then again with the light, having little light breaks during the day. I have a window cracked. If you can crack a window, crack a window. If you're driving, crack a window, because the light can bend and it can come in my eyes, and the light will continue to tell my body, oh, it's 10 a.m. Oh, it's 2 p.m. And so my body knows what time it is. Remember, we talked about that timing is really important. And then in the evening time, when the sun goes down, I always say when the sun goes down, insulin clocks out. Our body is not designed to metabolize or digest after dark. And I know that's a hard ask for a lot of people, and just do the best you can with this. Do not let perfection be the enemy of the good. Maybe this is a journey where you're like, okay, I'm not there yet, but I need to work on my metabolic health so I can eat dinner a little bit earlier, because remember we said we need that insulin to come down so that leptin can be like, hey, I got the report. We're ready to go. We're not starving. We can be fertile. We can, burn our body fat, right? So, when the sun goes down, this is when lights go off. Overhead lights certainly go off. The problem with lights nowadays is that these lights are LED lights, most of them, because incandescent bulbs have been made illegal in the United States, which is crazy. So the LED lights have so much blue light in them, and we just talked about that blue light raises cortisol. So we want to find a light bulb, and it doesn't have to be changing out every single light in your house, but maybe there's a couple of lamps. I see you have a Himalayan salt lamp. That's a perfect thing that we can use. We can use Himalayan salt lamps. I have an orange light bulb and a red light bulb in my living room, which is where I mainly am in the evenings. I have a red light bulb in my bedroom. I have some little red night lights that turn on like motion sensor when you walk into a bathroom, so I don't need to be flipping on a light. And then I also invested in a pair of orange or amber lens blue blocking glasses, because sometimes some people in the family forget to, and they turn on a light, or my neighbors have, bright lights coming in through my windows. So we want to do the best we can to mitigate this blue light at night, so we're not telling our body to keep producing cortisol. And we want to see, right? We still want to see. I'm still sometimes on my phone. I still sometimes watch TV, but that's why I have those glasses. And you can find out how to turn your phone screen red. So if you're watching the video, I can set it up so I can click the power button 3 times. It turns red. So we're doing these little things. We're working with technology. We are not pioneers. We're not, you can do candlelight, you can do fires, please, unscented beeswax candles, but these things, think about like our ancestors looked at a fire. It was orange. It was glowing. It was a little bit bright. So I think about that like after sunset. And then about an hour before bed, it would have been those like red glowing embers, very dark. So that's when we do the red. So I think about orange and amber after sunset, and then red about an hour before bed. And let me tell you, when there's no blue light in your environment, your melatonin starts to go up and you will fall asleep so fast. And sleep is so important for fertility, for hormones, for blood sugar, for insulin, and for weight loss. So for all of these things. So I just said a bunch of tips, and it's like, this is like really far reaching. So then let's talk about meal timing. So ideally, we're waking up with sunrise and eating within an hour of sunrise. Some people need to eat a little bit before. That's okay. But ideally within an hour of sunrise, especially if you're working on fertility, I would love to see you eating a breakfast high in protein. At least 30 grams of protein is a good starting point. That's also going to trigger that leptin to send the right signal. And it's going to help us feel full and satiated and stabilize our blood sugar. So a protein-rich breakfast. I love adding healthy fats to that. And ideally, if you want to go a step further, very low carb breakfast, because that can help with the leptin signaling, which is really helpful for fertility. And so keeping that breakfast really nourishing, stabilizing, and food you can chew. Okay, so we're talking about not blending, slurping down stuff like protein shakes. This can be something that you work towards. Like right now, if you're like, okay, I eat breakfast at like 11 a.m., I'm not hungry right now, we might need to look at stomach acid. We might need to start with the light. I wasn't hungry either. I used to do coffee first, then food. I would do coffee, and then I wouldn't eat until 10. And so I want you to switch that order. So we want to eat first. Our reward for eating breakfast is having coffee afterwards, right? So aim to not have coffee on an empty stomach, because if we're looking at our phones first thing, we're flipping on lights and we're drinking coffee, that's cortisol, cortisol, cortisol. That is high cortisol spiking in the morning, and that's not what our body wants. So we want to gently, gradually, we need to baby our bodies, right? So having protein-rich breakfast, having coffee after that, and aiming to not eat again for another 4 to 5 hours until lunch. If you can't do this, if you're in that hypoglycemic camp like I was in, like many of my clients are in, we need to work with that. A lot of minerals, a lot of adrenal support, a lot of these circadian strategies will be really helpful. And you will need to have carbs initially. Okay, so if you are hypoglycemic, keep dropping, your blood sugar keeps crashing, we need to keep you with some carbs initially. And, I specialize in helping people with that, and maybe you do too. So, reach out and work with someone who you trust, because it's a tricky issue to fix. But then we're also adding lots of good fiber through, non-starchy veggies on our plate. And I would encourage you, there's some people out there on the internet talking about blood sugar, and they say, eat your fiber first and then eat your proteins and fats and carbs. I personally like to just do a little swap on that. And I say protein is the most important thing that you will eat. And so I like my clients to eat all their protein on their plate until they literally can't take another bite of protein. And that's how much protein you need, because we have such a strong shutoff valve for protein, because there's a whole hypothesis about this, but we basically need a certain amount of protein, and our body will keep sending us hunger signals until we hit that goal, because protein is used for building blocks. Everything you see on my body is made of protein. Yeah. So if we don't have that protein, we need it to digest and to detoxify. We need it for so many things. That if we don't have enough protein, we're going to keep getting hunger signals. So this is like the number one strategy for my clients to stop snacking effortlessly, to go between meals, is getting that protein in. So eat all that protein, eat your fats and fibers. And then at the next meal, maybe you do have some whole foods, seasonal carbohydrates that work for you. And then maybe in the evening meal, this is where we need to see, like, that's where I love continuous glucose monitors to help us know what our body's doing. Like, oh my goodness, my blood sugar spiked so much, and then it crashed, and I was having cravings when it was like really high, and then I was starting to get shaky and anxious when it was dropping low. That happens to me every day. I just thought I was anxious. I thought it was, I needed to get an anxiety pill. So it's super enlightening what you would find out from these devices. So if we can build our plate like that and tailor the amount of carbohydrates, ideally whole food carbohydrates, to what our body's needing, where we're at in our menstrual cycle. So like the week before our cycle, we will probably need and crave more carbohydrates. Our metabolic rate goes up that week. So we will also probably be hungrier. So maybe having more carbs during that week, maybe during ovulation time as well. We might need a little bit more carbohydrate. And then during the first 2 weeks of our cycle, that's usually when we're good to go to lower these carbohydrates that we don't usually need as many. And we can tap into maybe more of a ketogenic approach and get our body burning fat for fuel. And so we can lean into this flexibility that we have these 28-day-ish cycles, that we want to honor these cycles, and we don't need the same exact thing every single day because we are not tiny men, right? We don't have a repeating 24-hour cycle. So we want to honor, like I was talking about, honoring the cycle of the 24-hour day, honoring the seasons by eating seasonally appropriate food. Again, this is a hard one for me. I'm still working on it. It's a work in progress. We're all works in progress, right? Like I don't even have it all figured out either. And then honoring these 28-day cycles. I mean, the key is tapping into nature. What is nature providing us? Nature has the things that we need. So the closer we can get to putting our feet on the earth, gathering all those electrons to give us energy, getting the sunlight on our skin in a safe way where we're, slowly exposing ourselves, building up a solar callus, which is a tan. Like I'm a little tan right now because I'm going to Costa Rica. I've been building my solar callus so I can prepare my body for that stronger UV light, which has so many benefits beyond just vitamin D, which is really important for blood sugar and sleep. So I would say, and then moving your body. Walks after meals are incredibly, incredibly helpful for bringing down that blood sugar spike. So if you're like, oh my gosh, I spiked my blood sugar, what do I do? Move, use up that energy. You just got a ton of energy in your system, and it will either be burned as energy as you move or stored as body fat. So sometimes I spike my blood sugar and I don't walk, right? I'm not telling you to be perfect. No one's perfect here. No one is preaching perfection on this show. And I don't want that to come through, okay? Because I am a recovering Enneagram 1 perfectionist for sure. So, and then building muscle. Building muscle is really, really powerful. And I would just say adding minerals to your water. So my water always has I make Soleil, so like good quality mineral salt. We are electric beings. We are so conductive. And think about a battery. If maybe maybe this analogy isn't helpful, but if a battery only had plain water in it, it would not conduct electricity. It needs electrolytes, right? That's where that word comes from. So we need all these minerals, and we whether you believe this or not, we evolved from the oceans. So we carry that salt water inside of us, and we need these minerals to help our body stay charged. And when we step on the earth with bare feet or touch a tree or pinch a blade of grass that is still growing in the ground, we are immediately soaking up electrons from the earth. And this is such a cool, powerful tool to help improve blood flow, reduce inflammation. I mean, come on, like you want to reduce inflammation, like step on the ground. Okay. I think I could work that into my day. Like you see these scans of people who are stepping on the earth and like how their blood was all these blood cells are like coagulated. And then when they stand on the earth or do some grounding for some time, then their blood, the little blood cells are free flowing. They're not sticking together anymore. And you can see that through like thermography or like heat scans that all like that red and pink and white, like glowing redness spots in their body are now like blues and yellows and greens. They have cooled down because the inflammation is dropping. And that is because we are getting electrons, we're getting a negative charge, and a negatively charged body is a healthy body. So it's just insane where all this stuff is going, and like how much I used to talk about food and how now I'm shifting so much to talking about these other principles, because they're just giving me so much hope that, the answers are within us and around us, and that they are accessible to people, and that it doesn't matter if it's cold out, it doesn't matter if it's cloudy out, it doesn't matter if it's hot out. We can just crack a window, and we're doing so much for our body. So I hope that you feel empowered by some of these strategies, and not that you have to get every single thing right, that you can be outside for 3 minutes at sunrise and you're helping your hormones and improving your ability to be fertile. Like what? Like it's so cool. And so I hope that you feel hopeful and empowered and inspired that your body is also trying to heal, and that if we put it in an environment that is conducive to its healing, it will do that.
I love that. It's amazing. And I could talk to you for hours and hours, but we do have to start to wrap up. So really quick, before we close out, I want to play a little game. I'm just going to ask you a few questions just so our audience can get to know more about you personally.
All
So
right.
are you open to that?
Ready? Let's do it.
Okay. Favorite food?
Ice cream.
Least favorite food?
Cheese. Don't hate me. I hate cheese.
Favorite animal?
Cats, for sure.
Least favorite animal?
A coyote, because one killed my cat.
So
So sad. Sorry, guys.
And something or someone you love?
I love my friends who I have met here in Austin. They are just, when you are with the people where you can be your nerdy self and wear your orange glasses at night when you're out in public, and we can, talk about coffee enemas and light and red lights, and you found your people when you don't need to be thinking about what you said after you leave the interaction, when people just get you and it flows. There's something special about that. So two of my friends, Molly Eastman, she's a sleep expert, and Amanda Kuda, she is a sobriety and spirituality coach, and they are just phenomenal people, inside and out, in their businesses and personal. So I want to shout out to them.
I love it. And I'm one of those weird people with the orange glasses, so maybe I can hang out with you guys if I'm
I love it. Yes, for sure.
My husband calls me, what does he call me? He was like, you look like not Jim Morrison. Oh my God, I can't think of it. Some celebrity that wears the orange glasses, and he always calls me that. It's a man.
That's
and I'm
so funny.
But I don't care. I'm getting good sleep, so whatever.
That's right. Yeah, it helps, right?
I love it. Well, Dani, tell everybody where they can find you. Where can they learn more about working with you?
So I hang out a lot on Instagram. My handle is Danielle Hamilton Health. That's also my website. It's also my YouTube, and my podcast is called Unlock the Sugar Shackles. So we'll have to get you on and chat about fertility. I would love to do that.
Let's do it. And you have a free gift for us too, your Sugar Savvy program. So tell us real quick about that.
Sure. So if you're interested in using or trying out a continuous glucose monitor, my clients always say it is the single most enlightening piece of technology they've ever invested in. And it is so worth its weight in gold for the amount of information that you learn about yourself. So inside Sugar Savvy, giving you guys a free code to access this program totally free. You can see where to get a continuous glucose monitor, because here in the US, you need a prescription to get them, but we have companies that will take care of that for you. They have great apps where you can log your food, you can log a workout and all these things, and start learning about yourself. And in the program, I teach you about how to set up the device, what all these numbers mean. You're going to put it on and be like, okay, but what is this good? Is this not? It's moving, it's spiking. Is this good? Is this bad? So it's going to cover all of those things for you. So, I'm sure you'll put those in the show notes and the code and everything. So
amazing. I love that. And yes, I talk about those monitors on the show a lot, and it's so hard to get it in the US. So I'm glad there's companies coming out now where it's making it more accessible to, the general public. So that's amazing. Yeah. I love it. So as we close, any final thoughts? What do you want to say is just your last piece of advice for us?
Last piece of advice. Don't stress about your stress. Don't stress about these pieces, because stress also raises your blood sugar. So if you can't do things perfectly, sit and meditate. It will bring your blood sugar down. It really will. It's amazing. So control what you can and do the best you can. I think so many people get caught up in trying to do everything. And I can certainly be like, I did all these things, but I didn't get a workout in. It's you're not going to get it all in every single day. You're just not. We're not machines. We're humans. And so I just want to give everyone permission to just take a deep breath and take a second and say, we need to look at our rushing tendencies. There's a book, Rushing Women Syndrome, and I related to it so much. And I think so many of us we're so hurt by this, trying to figure it all out. And just, if we take a deep breath and put ourselves in nature and just take a break, a lot more beneficial things will happen. So
for sure. I love that. Oh my goodness. Well, thank you so much. This has been, oh my goodness, such a great show. So thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And thank you, ladies, for listening to the Hormone Puzzle Podcast. We'll see you in the next episode. Bye for now. Hey, hang on a second. Before you go, I've got some fantastic free resources waiting for you over at our website. You can find that at www.hormonepuzzlesociety.com. You'll find everything from a fertility meal plan, a cycle optimizing quick start guide, even a pregnancy meal plan. Plus, there's masterclasses and blog posts from myself and leading experts in the fields of fertility, hormones, and nutrition, all designed to support you on your journey. And I wish there had been something like this when I was going through my 2 years of unexplained infertility, but there just wasn't. That's why I put all of these resources together for you. So make sure you go and check these out and make the most of the support that I've arranged for you. And here's a little secret. These are the same strategies and foods that helped me conceive not once, but twice, even after my doctor said that I couldn't. So I know that these things work. Make sure that you take advantage of that. And I can't wait for you to be our next success story. Thank you so much for joining me. And remember to visit our website at www.hormonepuzzlesociety.com for the show notes of today's episode. And if you've enjoyed our time together, please subscribe and leave us a review. I so appreciate you and thank you for being a valued listener. See you on the next episode of the Hormone Puzzle Podcast. Take care and lots of love.